In the late 1960s, Northern California was living a dream, the summer of love, free spirits, and the open road. But hidden beneath the rolling hills and quiet streets was a darkness no one could see coming. A man, or perhaps a monster, calling himself Zodiac, would taunt the world. He sent letters to newspapers boasting of his crimes, challenging the authorities and daring them to catch him. In one message, he claimed to have killed dozens more than the police had confirmed. In another, he included a cipher, a twisted message designed to mock anyone who dared to decode it. Decades later, the Zodiac Killer remains one of America's most haunting mysteries. The murders stopped, but the fear never really went away. Tonight, we delve deep into the hunt, the victims, the clues, the suspects, and the code that may never be cracked. This is The Hunt for America's Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac wasn't a known name, at least not at first. Investigators had no confirmed identity. What they did know, his crimes were committed in the San Francisco Bay Area, mostly in Vallejo, Berryessa, and later Lake Berryessa. His first acknowledged victims appeared in the summer of 1968. Two teenagers parked in a secluded area near Vallejo were shot. The killer vanished into the night, leaving no trace. Over the next months, more attacks, each one seemingly unconnected yet chillingly similar. The pattern, random, brutal, and unpredictable. But what set Zodiac apart wasn't just the violence, it was his message. He didn't only kill, he communicated, he manipulated, he threatened. On July 4th, 1969, Darlene Ferran and Michael Mageau were in a parked car in Vallejo feeling safe. In broad daylight. At around 11:30 p.m., a man approached. Without warning, gunfire erupted. Ferran was killed. Mageau was gravely wounded but survived. He would later describe the shooter, a man in his mid-20s, about 5'8", unremarkable, yet deadly. The next night, August 4th, 1969, in Berryessa, a similar scene, two young people shot while sitting in a car. This time, both survived to tell the story. But the town was shaken. Police were baffled. There was no obvious motive, no connection between victims. Just two horrifying nights that felt connected, but didn't make sense. These attacks would mark only the beginning of a terror that would grip Northern California. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, but this time in the countryside. Lake Berryessa, a quiet place for picnics and boating. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing on the shores when a man wearing a bizarre costume, a hooded mask, a buckle, and a cross-circle symbol on his chest, approached them. He claimed he had a knife and demanded their money. What followed was shocking. He tied them up, slashed them repeatedly, and walked away. Cecilia died 2 days later. Brian survived. The costume, the symbol, they were like something out of a horror film. But this was real. And the Zodiac was proving he was more than just a shooter. He was theatrical. He was symbolic. Some weeks later, the Zodiac's terror moved to San Francisco. On October 11th, 1969, the city's geography changed in an instant. At a quiet intersection, taxi driver Paul Stein was shot just for doing his job. There was no robbery. There was no clear reason. What made this murder especially chilling was what came next. A letter to the San Francisco Chronicle claiming responsibility, signed with his now infamous symbol, the crosshair circle. Suddenly, the Zodiac was no longer just a local shooter. He was a monster that lurked in the heart of the city. Perhaps the most terrifying thing about the Zodiac was how he communicated. He didn't hide after his murders, he wrote. To the Vallejo Times-Herald, he sent a letter confessing to the shootings. To the San Francisco Chronicle and San Francisco Examiner, he sent ciphers, cryptic codes boasting about future kills, mocking police. One such cipher, now called Z340, contained 340 characters, a puzzle that cryptographers still debate. Some believe it hides his identity, others believe it's a sick joke. In his letters, Zodiac also made demands. This is just the beginning, He warned. He threatened to kill more unless his letters were published on the front page, and the media obeyed. Because everyone was terrified he would act again, and he almost always did. Law enforcement scrambled. The crimes spanned different jurisdictions, Vallejo, Napa County, San Francisco, making coordination difficult. Detectives interviewed dozens of suspects. They ran down leads. They even studied the handwriting. But nothing definitive emerged. Some profilers painted a picture. Zodiac might be educated, possibly working a day job. Others suggested a loner motivated by celebrity or the thrill of terror. Over time, dozens of possible suspects were named. One of the most controversial, Arthur Lee Allen, a man with a past, a weird personality, and ties to the area. But even he could not be conclusively linked. Fingerprints, DNA, nothing matched. The case was becoming a labyrinth. Each door seemed to lead to more questions. Meanwhile, the public was in panic. The Zodiac killer was no longer just a case. He was a figure in nightmares. Newspapers ran his letters as front-page news. The media treated him like a celebrity, a monster celebrity. Schools warned students. Parents kept their children close. Adults double-locked their doors. Every letter he sent felt like a threat, personally addressed to the entire Bay Area. The Zodiac had created a persona, not just a murderer, but a twisted showman. As the years passed, the murders stopped, or at least no one confirmed more. But the hunt didn't end. Zodiac became a cold case. In the 2000s and 2010s, amateur sleuths and law enforcement returned to the file. Modern forensics offered new hope. DNA testing, geographic profiling, and new analysis of his letters. In 2020, a team claimed to have identified a suspect based on genetic genealogy, but the case remains unresolved. No conclusive arrest, no final confession. The Ciphers Z340 was partially solved, but some pieces don't align. Was it truly his identity or just another taunt? The Zodiac killer has left a mark far deeper than the lives he took. He inspired films, books, podcasts. He became a cautionary tale about obsession, about anonymity, about the darkness behind ordinary lives. He's part of American folklore now, a symbol of how evil can hide in plain sight. For some, he's a puzzle to be solved. For others, a horror story that will never end. And for countless true crime fans, the Zodiac remains the unsolved mystery, the case that refuses to close. Despite decades of investigation, the Zodiac killer remains anonymous. His ciphers are still debated, his victims still remembered, his death, if it has come, unconfirmed. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the Zodiac never wanted to be caught. Maybe his greatest weapon was not his gun, but his mind. As long as his letters exist, as long as his voice echoes in codes, the world will continue to hunt him. We may never know who he was, but we will always remember what he left behind. The hunt for America's Zodiac killer. Still on. If you want to uncover more real-life mysteries and dive deep into some of the most fascinating crime stories from around the world, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Every case has a story, and every story deserves to be told.